Hello and welcome to the Data Career Academy podcast. This is a show dedicated to closing the information gap between data job seekers and hiring authorities about the challenging data analytics job market. My name is Albert Bellamy. I'm the host of the show, and it's my goal to highlight aspiring data analysts and their abilities in order to get them hired, to spotlight recent hires and how they successfully navigated the hiring process, as well as to find out from real industry experts what the job market looks like from the hiring side and how all of that can benefit you, the listener. So let's get into today's episode. My guest today is Marisol Maloney. She is a cleared intelligence recruiter focusing on veterans. She is also a Navy veteran herself. We're talking about our service, the preamble to the show here. She coaches veterans on transition, and she runs Secret Squirrel Consulting LLC, which specializes in, amongst sundry other things, intelligence veteran resumes, LinkedIn assistance, career coaching, probably fold your laundry, walk your dog for you. I don't know. Marisol, please tell us about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I am Navy veteran. Prior enlisted, I enlisted fresh out of
Nice.
high school and I always wanted to be a nurse. So I was able to get a nurse corps scholarship
Oh,
with the
cool.
Navy and I specialized in emergency nursing. So I was a commissioned officer and specialized in nursing. And then after 10 years, I decided to switch careers. And I was the first nurse corps officer to successfully transition into the intelligence community.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I retired at 20 years, and during my last tour, I was a speechwriter for a four-star admiral, which was a great experience. And that's when I realized I really enjoyed writing. And I got out during COVID. And
Yeah.
so for a year, I didn't work
Lucky you.
because I had little ones, so I couldn't really
Uh,
work. The daycare was closed. And in the meantime, I worked on my project management certification through Offer
okay.
to Opportunity, which is a great program. I highly recommend
Yes.
it. And a week after I got my PMP, I started applying to jobs and I got three job interviews and two offers, and I took both. So I did the full time as a Intel planner and intelligence analyst, and then I did another one as a consultant for a
Okay.
DoD company part time. And I had to work it out with both companies saying, okay, I'm taking this job, and this is my plan. And they were okay with it because I was
Wow.
very open about what I wanted to do and why.
Yeah.
So the contract ended. It was only like 12 months, I think 10 or 12 months. I can't remember now, but it was a short-term contract and it wasn't taken away from my full-time job. And then I was, my husband was still active duty. And at the time he got orders to San Diego. So I had to leave that job
Yeah.
and then move to San Diego. And about 2 months later, my previous boss called me. She's like, hey, we don't have any Intel jobs in San Diego for you, but we do have a recruiting job. It's based out of the DC area, but because of COVID, we're going to try this remote
Hmm.
thing and see how it works. Would you be interested? And at first I thought, I don't know, the idea of cold calling and cold emailing people, I don't know, may
Hmm.
be uncomfortable. But then I said in true military fashion, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
I'm open to being uncomfortable, getting out of my comfort zone and trying something new. And if I don't like it, I'm a civilian. I can quit. Not like when you're in the
Yep.
military, you have to suck
It's
it
the
up.
newest thing. Yeah.
You have to suck it up until you PCS or until
Hmm.
your supervisor PCSs or someone leaves if you're not happy with the supervisor or the job. But in this instance, I really enjoyed what I was doing. And it was during the first month of recruiting that I was seeing how bad resumes were from veterans because I didn't really struggle with mine. I kind of taught myself how to write it.
Hmm.
And yeah, my first resume was terrible. And
Yeah.
eventually
All of ours are.
after spending like 100 hours rewriting my resume, I finally
Wow.
cracked the code and was able to get interviews. And then I finally optimized my LinkedIn profile. So that's actually how I got those job interviews was because recruiters were reaching out to me via LinkedIn because I had a fully
Nice.
optimized LinkedIn profile, which is I'm always advocating for veterans to optimize their profile, make sure they fill
Hmm.
everything out. So I remember during one of my phone screens with a candidate, he when I called him, he was so happy to hear from me. He's like, Marisol, oh my God, I've been unemployed for 6 months. I retired 6 months ago. And this was a
Mm.
senior officer.
Yeah.
And and I could hear the desperation in his voice. And his resume was not that great, but the reason I called him was because he had on there that he was a top secret cleared intel officer with 20 years experience. And so I thought, well, with 20 years, I'm sure you've done some stuff. And for whatever reason, you're not putting on your resume because he did
Yeah.
not list a lot of the keywords or the databases that the job
Yep.
description was
Doesn't convey
asking
the
for.
value, doesn't speak the language of the domain he's going to.
Yes, but because
Yep.
I worked in the cleared space and I was also an officer, I was like, I know he's done some stuff, so I'm gonna go ahead and call him. So I
Yeah.
did. I called him and then I went line by line of the job description. I'm like, well, have you done this? Have you done that? And he said, yes, I've done all of that. He's like, I've trained people in this. I'm like, okay, so why wasn't it on your resume? He's like, I just didn't know how to put it on there, and I didn't
Hmm.
know that I could mention some of those things. So in the intelligence community, we are told to be very like careful with what we put on there.
Oh yeah. Secret
So
squirrel.
secret squirrels. So then what happens is we tend to scrub down our information so much that the civilian recruiter who's never done intel, never been in the military, can't decipher what you did.
Yeah.
In my case, I was able to read between the lines. But had it been another recruiter, he would have probably also been rejected like he had been for the past 6 months. And so I gave him the feedback on his resume. And at first I was kind of hesitant because I'm like, I don't want him to get offended because people are very protective of their resumes. That's like their baby. And they don't want to be told that their
Yeah.
baby's ugly. But his
Yep.
baby was ugly. And I had to tell him. And he was okay with it. And then I gave him the advice like, okay, this is what you need to do, change this, change that. And then he said, okay, I'll do the best I can. So I could hear the hesitation. So I said, you know
Hmm.
what? Let me do it for you. Let me write it for you. I was already familiar with the job description. I already knew what the hiring manager wanted. So I'm like, let me just rewrite it for you. I'll send it back to you for your approval. You can make edits, make sure everything's correct. And I'm not saying any lies, like everything's correct and accurate. He's like,
Yeah.
okay. So it took about 2 hours to knock it out. Sent it back to him. He sent it back to me. He's like, this looks great. I'm good. No changes. I said, okay.
Yeah.
And I sent it to the hiring manager. He got an interview like the next day or so, and then he got a
Beautiful.
job offer. And I remember my husband saying, you should start
Yeah, you're good at this.
charging for
Yeah.
resumes. I'm like, I'm not gonna do charge my candidates. He's like, no, dummy, like start your own business and help other veterans. And it would be a year before I finally started my business because that imposter syndrome was coming at me. Like, no, there's so
Yeah.
many resume writers out there, well established. But I was doing it for free. I was volunteering with organizations, doing resume reviews and doing free rewrites. That's my time taken away from my
Yep.
family, my job to do this stuff. And so finally, other veterans encouraged me to do it. And I said, you
Hmm.
know what? Okay, it's time. And that's how Secret Squirrel Consulting was born through the
Yeah.
encouragement of my veteran network. And really, it was my husband. He was the first one that saw that talent. It was just
Yes.
me being stubborn at the time and not really believing in myself, which is funny because I pull out information from my clients and make them believe in themselves. So now I do practice what I preach, but occasionally that imposter syndrome still like lingers and wants to come out, and then I have to just push it aside and remind myself that my clients have been very successful so far. So far, 100% of my clients have gotten job interviews, and the timelines
Oh
have
wow.
varied. Like my Intel clients tend to get picked up the quickest. And same thing
Yeah.
with some of the established cybersecurity analysts. They get jobs quicker than, say, a logistics person or someone that's new to
Yeah.
PMP or a
But it's
brand
just such a
new.
specialized skill set, and it's tough to find.
Yes. Yes. But the more experience they have, the easier it is for them to get job interviews and
Yep.
eventually get the job offer. So it just depends. It could be as early as the soonest I had someone was, yeah, about 2 days. And then some took like 30 days, some took 60, some 90. So it just depends. So eventually everybody lands a job after I work with them, but it also takes some heavy lifting on their part. It doesn't do them any good to have this beautiful resume and then not do anything with it. So
Hmm.
I've had people that have had other resume writers, whether they use free services or paid services, come back to me and say, hey, I have a resume that someone wrote, but I'm not getting interviews. Why is that?
Yeah.
So then I'll review it. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with the resume per se. It's just that they're not applying to the right jobs or they're not tailoring it to the jobs. So, for
Yeah.
example, if they get a resume written by someone for a project management role and then they start applying to cybersecurity roles or IT jobs, they have to update that information. And so they don't. So I teach my clients how to do that. And I tell them you're going to keep updating your resume with every job description, depending on if you try to apply with different job families. But if it's all within the same job family, then okay, you can keep a lot of the verbiage, but you still have to look at the job description and tailor them to specific keywords. And an example I like to use a lot is if there's a job description that says must have experience eating hot dogs and you have that experience, make sure to put a bullet in your resume somewhere that you have hot dog eating experience, or maybe in your summary section, and say how many hot dogs you've eaten. Maybe you've eaten like 100 per month, per year, per quarter, or maybe you were the champion of a hot dog eating contest. And then if you apply to another job and they're looking for someone with hamburger eating experience, then you go back and you swap out that hot dog eating bullet for the hamburger eating experience. And that's what I mean by tailoring your job description to the keywords in the job description. And so if you take more than 15, 20 minutes, either you're not qualified for the role or you didn't understand the assignment.
Yeah.
So that's how I try to train people and educate them on how to write their own resume moving forward so that they never have to hire another resume writer again, unless they want to.
Yeah. I love that. I'm looking over here at your LinkedIn profile because earlier I had a post of yours that was talking about matching matching things in your resume to the job description. And there's certain kind of knockout things that, like a security clearance where it's like, hey, that's a no kidding requirement. Like if you don't have that, it's just like having, job requires a bachelor's degree. You don't have bachelor's degree, you don't get job. Um, so talk to me about like what strategy do you advocate for people? I know that that's kind of a no-brainer. Like you either have the security clearance or you don't. And if they require it, you have to have it or you're getting knocked out. Talking about other requirements, what is your advice to people? Do you advocate for them to shoot for jobs that where it's like, hey, you want to meet all of the must-haves? Do you advocate for your clients, hey, maybe shoot for the moon and and shoot for some where you've got 80 or 70 or 90% of the must-haves? What's your opinion on that?
I tell them for defense contracting roles, they have to aim for 100%.
Okay.
But I also tell them if they meet at least 80%, that's okay too, because sometimes the recruiter may keep that resume and application on file for future jobs in which
Mm,
they do meet those requirements. Because I've done that. I've rejected candidates that did not meet 100% of the requirements because that's what the client wants. So they're
yeah.
going to reject them anyway. So basically, I have to do it, be the bad guy, not the ATS bot. It's me. I'm the ATS bot
Yeah.
rejecting people's resumes and well, it's the application I'm rejecting. It's not the resume, it's the application.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's the application that will get you knocked out. Um, my applicant tracking system that I use, it does have the option to do knockout questions, but I remove those because in case someone doesn't meet the requirements, I want to be able to see why they didn't meet the requirements and what are they
Okay.
missing. And then I also keep notes. So I'll say, okay, not qualified for this role, but would be a good candidate for this other role. And so I may move them to a different requisition so sometimes I'll still call the candidate and say, hey, you don't meet those requirements, but I think you may be a better fit for this role. Would you be interested? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no, but I'll try to give them that option.
Hmm.
And so, yes, it's important for Department of Defense jobs, contracting jobs, that you meet 100% of the requirements. And sometimes there might just be three requirements: top secret clearance, a bachelor's degree, 5 years
Yeah.
experience minimum. So sometimes they're really short requirements. If you're missing any one of those, you're not qualified and you're going to get rejected. And
Yeah.
some ATSs, some recruiters, hiring managers have set up knockout questions because that will also be in the questions in the application. It'll
For
say,
each of those must-haves.
yes, do you
Yeah.
have a top secret clearance, or what clearance level do you have? And if you don't
Hmm.
pick the right one, it's an automatic rejection. If you don't have the education that they're looking for, it's an automatic rejection, depending on what they have set up. It could be, are you at least 18 years of age, for example? That could be a
Yeah.
knockout question. It could be, are you a US citizen? Because you're working with classified data, sensitive data. So for the most part, they want US citizens with the correct clearance. And sometimes people think, okay, the job says TSSCI with poly. I'm sure they'll get me the poly, but sometimes they don't do that. It just depends on how the job description is written. If it says must
Hmm.
have the top secret SCI with polygraph, depending on which polygraph, CI or full scope, and you don't have it, they'll reject you. But sometimes the job description will say must have a TSSCI with CI poly or full scope poly, or must be willing to take the polygraph.
Yeah.
In that case, that means that they will sponsor your polygraph. You just have to schedule a date to take the exam, and they will that will, bump you up to the CI poly. So it's all in the job description. The problem I notice is people just don't stop to read the job description. They'll see
Oh,
Intel
okay.
analyst and just apply.
Yeah.
And there's different kinds of Intel. There's
I'm
Fugent,
intelligent. Why not?
there's SIGINT, and so
Yeah.
you have to meet the correct requirements. Like I'm an Intel analyst, but I'm not SIGINT savvy. I dabbled in it, but
Yeah.
I'm not a SME in it. I'm all source.
Yeah.
So read the job description. That's true of any job. So whether you're going for project management roles or program management roles, and sometimes I tell people not to focus on the title so much, but focus on the skills because sometimes
Hmm.
it'll list they're looking for a project manager, but really the skills sound more like program management. And if you have
Yeah.
those skills, focus on that. So I tell people don't focus too much on the titles. Forget about the titles. Look at the skills that they're looking for. And if you have those, list them and then use metrics. And by metrics, I mean numbers, percentages,
Yeah.
dollars made, dollars saved, because that's
But
what
don't make them
companies
up.
want. Exactly. Don't make them up. Don't use
Yeah.
ChatGPT
Don't let
to just
ChatGPT make them
spit
up.
out,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not discouraging you from using ChatGPT. It's fine to use ChatGPT to start, to
Yes.
start drafting your
Or to
resume,
refine.
to refine, yes,
Yeah.
but many people will just submit their resume the
Yep.
way ChatGPT spits it out, and it's pretty obvious because I do get some of those.
Here's all my fit reps. Boom. Yeah.
Exactly, and sometimes ChatGPT still uses some military acronyms and
Hmm.
language, so it doesn't fully civilianize it because it's still learning too. So it's not perfect. And that's why I tell people read the job description, tailor it to the job description. So
Yeah.
there's people trying to use all these hacks that don't work. Like, what if I copy and paste the job description onto my resume and use white font? It's not going to get you a job interview because the truth
Is that
always
your
comes out.
favorite resume myth? I know you've got a lot because I was looking back through your content and I remembered a few of them. You've got recruiter myths, you've got resume myths. I got to know, like, what's the best?
That one, that
I
one's
love
probably
the invisible type is maybe my favorite. But
yes, because
yeah.
they think there's a bot that's reading it,
Yeah.
and then some recruiters, will type in to make the full to show everything, all the content that's on the resume, it'll pop up and then
Yeah.
they'll just automatically reject you because they're like, okay,
Yeah.
you're a knucklehead. I
Yeah.
don't do that. I
They're
go
trying for
by
tricks.
yeah, because I don't know if my resume, my ATS can do that, but I really read the resume. So I'll
Hmm.
know within 30 seconds or less if they're qualified. So the, yes, recruiters do spend less than 30 seconds on a resume, but it's not because they're trying to disqualify. They're looking for the qualifier. So I'm looking for the
Because they're trying to be
technical
efficient.
experience. Yes, I'm looking
And because I tell people like when you see a crap resume, it doesn't even take 30 seconds to realize it's a crap resume. Like
yeah,
it might take five tops.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's unstructured. And for example, if I'm looking for Intel analyst and your job starts with Uber driver looking to get into
Yeah.
intelligence, that's a hard pass. Like, no,
Yeah.
no. And I get a lot of those too. Or they were a business analyst or financial analyst. Just because they have analyst after their previous title doesn't mean they're qualified to be an intelligence analyst. So I get a lot of those resumes. And also people that don't have the right clearance or it's expired or not expired, but
Yeah.
it's inactive. So that's what I look for. But yeah, the only hack is to be qualified. That's it. That's what's going to get you through the
Yeah.
ATS bots. Now, there are ATSs that scan for keywords and will
Hmm.
can grade them. So again, my applicant tracking system, the one I use is Clear Company, and it can do that, but I have that feature off because
You
I
don't have
found
that
that it
set.
was
Okay. So that's
when
optional.
when I started recruiting, it was on. It was grading A, B, C, and then X for like completely unqualified. Um, but it was
Shouldn't
giving
even be here.
yeah, but it was
Yeah.
giving A's to people that weren't that qualified. I was like, why is it? This is a crappy resume. They don't meet the requirements. But because, for example, they were using the word intelligence a lot, it was bumping them
Yeah.
up higher. But then maybe someone said intelligence once, but met all the requirements. It was giving them a C. And so that's why I turned
I
off the
think
feature.
JobScan used to do that. Did you? I don't know if you ever used JobScan. I was using that for a while, but yeah, it would grade you on like the number of times it's like the job description says quality four times and you only say it twice in your resume. Like, why would I? That's a word for the job description. Why would I? Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
use that feature. So what I do is I compare it to the job requirements. And also because I actually write the job descriptions for my company
Hmm.
based on the statement of work. And so, and also discussions with the hiring manager. So I'm very
Yeah.
proactive. Like I'll ask the hiring managers, hey, is this what you wanted? Is there something else you want me to add to the job description that you're not seeing, that you want to see in candidates? And so I do try to have a relationship with them. And that helps as well to have a better idea of what I'm looking for because I do go off of the job description and I'll go down to the descriptions and the requirements. And I do agree. I know there's some frustrations with job seekers that say that some of the job descriptions out there don't make sense or too complicated. And I agree. I think some are too long and they list like all these responsibilities when really I think they should focus on what's required. Like
Hmm.
the no shit. This is what you need. This is what you
Yeah.
need to have. And this is a summary of the requirements. And that's what the phone screen is for. And that's what the interview is for, to discuss more of the, day-to-day responsibilities. But when they list every single little thing, yes, job seekers get tired of reading the whole thing, but I still encourage them to read them. And some will say, well,
Yeah.
I'm applying to hundreds of jobs. Well, that's another problem. You're applying to too many. Are you
Yeah. You're
really
not tailoring.
qualified? You're not tailoring, you're not reading. So are you really qualified? And that's where you're going to get 100 rejections or
Hmm.
500 rejections. I've had people tell me they've gotten 2,000. They're like, oh, I've been applying and, there's nothing. So then I ask them, are you using the same exact resume for those
Hmm.
2,000 jobs? And they'll say yes. I'm like, that is the problem. You're not tailoring your resume
Yeah.
to any of those jobs. And then they'll say, but that's 2,000 jobs. That's a lot of work. That's the problem. You're applying to too many. I say do no more than like five or maybe even 10 per week and then track them.
Okay.
Keep a little tracking system, Excel spreadsheet, Word document,
Yeah.
notepad. There's so many ways to track it. So you know what jobs you apply to and when, and also keep a copy of the job description that you apply for. So I tell people to create a digital folder.
Hmm.
So say you want to apply to Google and Amazon, do a Google and Amazon folder, keep the job description for the Google job in the Google folder, and also the version of that resume that you submitted to Google, and then do the same for
Yeah.
Amazon. So that way you know what you did. And the reason for that is because when you apply to jobs, some companies will remove the job requisition after they've had enough applicants. So sometimes you'll go back and you're like, oh no, I
Okay.
don't know where it went. And now you're getting called for an interview 3 weeks later because they finally got through all of the qualified candidates.
Mm.
And they're calling you 3 weeks later and you can't remember what job it was that you applied for with Google or Amazon.
Yeah.
So this is why I
Probably
tell
bad form
people,
to ask that on the phone with the recruiter. Like, what job is this again?
yeah, it is off-putting, but I also understand that people
Yeah.
don't know any better. So I really do try to recruit with empathy and compassion. So I always remind them, hey, are you still good to, I tell them, thank you for applying for whatever role it was, technical
Hmm.
engineer, IT, cyber, intel, whatever the job was, I remind them and I make sure that they're good to talk at whatever time that they're available. And then I also follow up with the job description and the salary range. That
Okay.
way they know. And I just want to make sure that that is when they're in their salary expectation. And I'll give them the lowest range and the highest range because there is a budget that they have set. So they can negotiate higher if they want, but they're not going to get it. At least not
Yeah.
with the company that I work for. It's a set budget. And with some companies, I'm sure there's wiggle room, but I work for a small company and they're pretty set on their budgets. And so I like sharing that with them, with the candidates, so that way they know what they're getting themselves into. And
Okay.
then I move them forward to the hiring manager if they meet the requirements, but they have to check all the boxes and then be within the salary range. And then I move them forward to the hiring manager. And if they do decide to get an interview, I'll reach back out to my candidates and ask them if they want to do an interview prep with me. And
Oh, okay.
so far, every single one has gotten an offer after doing the interview
That's
prep with
done the
me.
interview prep.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. And it's
Now, do
not
you
like I give
find
them
a
the
lot of
answers.
people like that they may have a tuned up resume so that that gets through the pipeline, but then they get into the interview and they're unprepared and they fail? Yeah.
Yes. That's happened too, where they were just arrogant. And I've noticed that with some of the senior officers and senior enlisted more than the juniors. The juniors seem to be more humble and ready to learn.
We
But
weren't
I've,
senior officers. We're definitely mid-level.
yes, mid-level.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, they're like, oh, I got this. So they want to wing it. as if they're giving a debrief
I'll
to
just be
like their command.
myself. Like, that's
And
terrible advice. Don't ever do
yeah, yeah, and then they don't know how to articulate their thoughts. I always
Yeah.
tell people review your resume. I'm still surprised the number of people that don't know their resume inside and
Yeah.
out. Like, how do you
Oh,
not know what's
that's
in
my
your
favorite
resume?
thing. In a client meeting with a resume client, and you're like, well, this bullet here where you say this, that you increased revenue by 12%, like how did you measure that? And they're like squinting at the resume. I'm like, you need to read your own resume to anyway, that's
Yes, this happened.
always mind
Had a
blowing to me.
gentleman, he said something about AI.
Hmm.
He's like, "Oh yes, I've
Oh boy.
used AI for whatever." And so he got asked this during the interview by the hiring manager. He's like,
Oh,
"Oh, I see that you've used AI. Can you explain to us how you've used AI?" And he just like kind of like panicked and was like,
deer in the headlights.
I'm not a technical person. So if you're looking for a technical person, then I'm not your guy." So he started to
Yeah,
self-sabotage.
combative. Yeah,
And people were like, they were confused, like, all we did was ask you what's on your resume.
yeah.
And then they asked them behavioral questions like, tell us about a time that you failed your team. And he was like, well, I don't think I've ever failed my team. If you're in a leadership role,
Yeah, you failed.
you failed. How many
Yes.
times did you give someone a task, one of your Marines a task, and then they screwed it up? And it
Oh
was
yeah.
probably a leadership failure because maybe you didn't double
And you
check
didn't
that they
supervise.
understood, you didn't
Yep.
supervise, and also you maybe didn't give them the right tools to succeed. And
Yep.
maybe they're afraid to ask because you're senior to them. So there are a lot of things that as leaders we can do to make sure our juniors are successful. And I can give you plenty of examples. So why couldn't he give at least one example? And
Yeah,
then he
exactly.
was
That
asked
tells me
something
you have
like,
no self-awareness.
exactly, exactly. Some of these behavioral questions, they're looking for self-awareness and maturity level, and
Mm,
also see your thought process and make sure you're not gonna, just go rogue and do your own thing. So that there's a reason for these behavioral questions.
yeah.
And so when you bomb them, yeah, you're not moving forward to the next step. So always prepare.
Yeah. So I've got to ask about hot button issues. And it's funny getting ready for this session. I was actually just in a conversation with someone the other day where she was complaining bitterly about I've been ghosted by so many recruiters. And that's something I hear a lot. Me personally, I don't think I've ever dealt with recruiters going to a job. So I know that I hear that from the candidate pool, and I'm like, I was thinking about that last night. Like, what does that even mean? Like, you got ghosted. Like, tell me what does that mean to you? Do you see other recruiters? I'm sure you don't, but do you see other recruiters doing that? Is that a problem, or is that some sort of perception issue?
I think there is some ghosting going on, but
Okay.
the way people define ghosting, like ghosting is when someone has started a conversation, like I talk to you, you talk to me, and then I stop talking to you. That's
Okay.
ghosting. But people randomly reaching out to another recruiter and the recruiter doesn't respond, that is not ghosting. There was never
Yes. They're
contact
busy and you're not
initiated.
interesting.
And also, I do get a lot of crappy resume sent to me all the time via LinkedIn. Hey, can you look at my resume? Can you tell me what jobs I'm good for? Can you tell me, what jobs you have available? And so that
Yeah. Do the
automatically is
legwork
a
for
red
me.
flag for me, and it tells me that you're lazy or
Yes.
uninformed. You haven't done the
Yes.
research because you can go to my LinkedIn profile. You can see the name of my business. You can also see the name of the organization I work for as a recruiter. So you can see
Hmm.
the website and see what roles are available. So if you're going to reach out to a recruiter and you want to increase your response, do your research first. Make sure that the recruiter you're reaching out for or out to actually recruits for the roles you're looking for. So don't reach
Yeah.
out to an HR recruiter for an Intel job or vice versa. I get a
Yep.
lot of people reaching out to me for HR roles, logistics jobs, and I'm like, okay, please go to I just sent them a quick message. Please go to this website, to see what we're currently hiring for. And if you meet the requirements, I encourage you to apply. And then that's it. But I'm not opening their documents. I'm not looking at their resumes because I already know they're not qualified for the jobs I'm recruiting for. And I'll quickly peek at their LinkedIn and I'm like, yeah, no. So, but I still try to respond to everybody. But because they're not a priority, because I already know they're not qualified, I'm moving quickly to the ones who are qualified and
Yeah.
meet the requirements. And I'm human. Sometimes it might take me 2 weeks to get back to them. I'm like, oh yeah, I meant to reply to this person. So I do go back and reply to them
Okay.
eventually. But again, I'm
But not
not ghost
everybody's going to do that, nor do they owe that to a
exactly, especially
drive-by
because
candidate.
especially because LinkedIn is my personal account.
Hmm.
So I don't have to respond to anybody if I don't want to. I
Yeah,
choose
not
to
professionally.
respond to
Yeah.
people. Same thing with emails. When I get a random email, I'll reply to them. But I prioritize by those who are qualified and those who have already applied. So sending me a resume and telling me, hey, keep me in mind for future roles, I'm not going to remember you, especially if you
No.
don't engage me on LinkedIn. Now, has it worked out for other people? Yes, but that's because they engage me on LinkedIn, they message me, they keep in
Hmm.
touch. And so they're at the top of my head. So yeah, I remember them. And if something comes up, I'll tag them on a post or another job that maybe another recruiter's
Awesome.
recruiting for. So
Yeah.
I do try to share jobs from other recruiters. And some people say, well, that's your competition. Why are you sharing their jobs? Because at the end of the job, at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to help
Yep.
veterans and transitioning service members land jobs. So I don't care if they get a job through my company or if they get a job with another company. I just want to make sure that my fellow veteran is employed. That's it. So I will share jobs from other companies. And I encourage other recruiters to tag me on their jobs so I can share it with my network. And I'm sure you've seen some of my posts where I'm constantly sharing
Absolutely.
so and so is hiring, this
Yep.
person is hiring, this company is hiring. Reach out to them because people, again, don't read the post and they'll comment interested. And I'm like, okay, that's
Oh, it's
great.
my
Good for
favorite.
you.
Yeah.
This isn't Facebook. Like,
Again,
it's
make
not
make me do the
marketplace.
work for you.
So
Yeah.
how about you apply then? I just gave you the information, do something about it, take action. And I notice this all the time. The ones that fail often are the ones that don't take action, expect
Yep.
information to be fed to them. The ones that are successful are the ones that take action. So for example, my clients, my resume clients and coaching clients have been successful because they were ready to put in the work. Everything
Yeah.
I give them, all the information I give them, they take action. And I put out this stuff for free too in my posts. Like everything I charge, I'm actually giving out for free, and people are just not taking action.
Yeah.
So basically what people pay me is for a transformation, but they're ready to put in the work.
Yeah. There's a coach slash motivational speaker, Myron Golden, and he's one of my favorites. And he calls it community service content. And he's like, hey, I've got the things that I sell in my courses that's over here. He's like, but I put out posts and YouTube videos and podcasts every day. And he calls it community service content. And I think that's so brilliant because it's, literally is just, yeah, some of it might generate a couple of client leads for him or for you or for me, but for the most part, it's just trying to be helpful and present for people that need you. Um, so yeah, love that. Um, so if you could just Vulcan mind meld or like matrix call some thing into every job seeker, could be veteran, could be whoever, but every job seeker, what are they getting wrong that you would love to just snap your fingers and suddenly they're all doing it the right way?
Just reading, just
Yeah,
read the job description, doing research, and really finding out what they want to do with themselves. Do you really want to do that
yeah,
same job you did before? And having that self-awareness, like for transitioning military, for example, a lot of them feel that they have to do the same exact job that they did in the
yep,
military. Like maybe they did logistics, and so they only want to focus on logistics, but then they hated it. It's okay if you loved it, because I've also worked with clients that love
yeah,
logistics, supply chain stuff. They love it and they want to keep doing it, and that's fine. But the ones that don't want to do it, why are you torturing yourself? And sometimes it's they don't want to put in the work to maybe they want to be project managers, but they don't want to go get their PMP. They think it's too hard. Okay, well, you can apply to project management roles that don't require the industry certification. So
yep.
you still have to do research and have that self-awareness and know your self-worth. Like be realistic. Don't say, I want to make $150,000. Okay, well, what makes you worth $150,000? You can't
And have
just
you
throw
done
it around there.
research? Have you talked to
Exactly.
anybody that says that is a viable salary?
And a lot of them are shocked because some of the roles that they're seeking maybe only pays 80,000,
Yeah,
and even in Hawaii or California. So it just depends on the role. And so some people are used to getting paid that senior enlisted senior officer pay, and they think they can just waltz into a job getting that same exact pay. And it
yeah,
doesn't work that way. You have to still bring the years of experience. And many of us have leadership experience. Yes, we have 20, 30 plus years of leadership experience, but sometimes the job says, can you do PowerPoint? Sometimes that's all you want
yeah,
to do. Can you do that thing that as a single doer, not as a leader? They're not hiring a leader. They want a doer. So if
yep,
you can't do it, then don't be upset when you get that rejection email or when you actually make it to the interview and then they reject you because you couldn't articulate how you could do that thing. that they're
Yeah.
trying to hire you to do. So I'll see people wanting to apply for senior cybersecurity security analyst roles, for example, because maybe when they're in the military, they're in charge of a bunch of cybersecurity analysts. But the job itself requires you to do those things, the actual threat,
Yeah.
vulnerability, risk mitigation, all that stuff that they don't know how to do because they were leading. So in that instance, I recommend that they maybe try to do an internship or take some courses to get up to speed on what those types of jobs require, get the certifications as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like there's a fundamental misunderstanding in the veteran community of what leadership looks like in the civilian world. You are, and I think you touched on it, like you're a doer and leader. And so, yeah, in the military, as artillery battery commander, I was not firing anything. I was not loading. I would help, but the Marines would kind of humor me. But you know, you were not doing the grunt work. You had to know it well enough to supervise. In the civilian world, often a kind of low to mid-level supervisor, you're doing the things yourself while you're supervising. It's not a completely hands-off position. You are expected to produce things yourself as well. Um, so yeah, the kind of standalone leadership positions like that doesn't really exist out here. You gotta really know how to do a thing, and that thing probably is not what you did in the service. Even if it kind of sounds like it, you probably have some sort of outdated platforms or skills, and you really need a big refresh in
That's
most
it.
arenas.
Outdated platforms that they've used. They're
Yep.
not up to speed with some of the newer platforms. So that's why I tell them, take some courses. There's Coursera courses you can take for
Yeah.
yourself. There's so many veteran organizations out there. Vets
Hmm.
in Tech, Vets to Industry, Act Now, Education, Onward to Opportunity. All these organizations offer free certifications to help you level up for your
Yeah.
civilian careers. Take advantage of it. So that you don't even have to tap into your GI Bill when you start
Yeah.
taking all these free courses through these
Yeah.
amazing organizations. You just have to do the research. There are over 40,000 nonprofit organizations that help veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses with their career transitions, and people just don't take advantage of it. Because
Yep.
again, they're not doing research. They want everything spoon fed.
Yeah. And the one thing that I additionally recommend to people, because you can get down a rabbit hole with courses too. I found that one of the things that was a little overwhelming to me in retiring from the Marine Corps was there was almost too much help. And you had to pick and choose. It's like, I don't have time to go to the 50 strong webinar today and the USO one tonight and the O2O and the Vets to Industry this weekend. I only got so many hours in the day and I still have this real job and uh and it was a question of like paring down far more than it was. Now a lot of people don't avail themselves of all those assets, and it was a very nice problem to have to say, hey, you're not really in my niche or my domain, so I'm gonna, I appreciate the offer, but not interested. I had 4 or 5 different organizations that said, we'll fix your resume. Mixed results, but at least it was something. But at that point, you could sit there and say, okay, I'm going to do my resume through you, but not through this other organization. The one thing I tell people is like, get out there and make some friends. Like, you need to talk to people. There are plenty of veterans in every domain. And all you got to do is jump on LinkedIn and just start looking up people and start sending out some messages and say, hey, I want to get into data analytics, for example. And you just go and look at data analytics companies or companies that hire data analysts and say previous job in, Marine Corps, Navy, Army, Air Force, whatever else. And, just start talking to people. Just connect with those people and say, hey, I see we were both in service X. How do you like this job? Does it work for you? What do you do on a day-to-day basis? And most veterans are happy, if you approach them, if you're not like in panic mode and you're like, hey, I got to get out tomorrow. Can we meet? But if you're doing your homework and you're going about it the right way and you're respectful, just like, hey, can we connect? Can we meet for 15, 20 minutes, on your schedule? Um, you sweeten the pot, say I'll buy you a cup of coffee or something. All of those things then once you actually talk to someone, then you can figure out if even that training is worthwhile. Because I've known so many people that get their PM cert and then they get into the job and they're like, I hate this. PM is awful. I know people that love it, but I know a
Yeah.
lot of people that just assumed it was a good thing to do, and it wound up they wasted their time getting their certificate because they never talked to anybody that actually did it to figure out if they'd enjoy doing it.
Like HR certs,
Yeah.
people get them and
Uh-huh.
then like I hate
Yes.
HR. I don't know why I did that. And they go back and get their PMP. So they think getting more certifications is going to
Yes.
help them. But really,
Piles of paper.
you need to figure out what certifications do you really need. So again, goes back to doing your research. Read the job descriptions of the roles that you think you want to pursue. And if the
I love that.
common
You bring
theme
everything
is
back full circle. That's perfect.
if you see the common theme that says must have a, SHRM or PHR,
Yeah.
PMP certification or Security Plus, if that's the common industry certification that you keep seeing in these job descriptions, then, and that's what you think you want to do, or you're 100% sure you want to go for these types of jobs, then get that certification. But don't just get it just because you think you may need it or it may
Yeah.
help you. And yes, those certifications will open doors for you, but you still have to apply to the right roles. Like my PMP did open up roles for me, but I applied
But
to
you
the
didn't
right
want to be a
jobs.
PM.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And domain counts too. That's the other thing that I tell people. It's like, hey, I love being a data analyst. There are definitely industries out there where I would hate being a data analyst because to me, the data is boring and it just doesn't have any interest. I just stumbled into marketing analytics and it was freaking magic for me. I adored it. So I think like God had a hand in guiding me into something that I would actually enjoy. But man, if I was in like manufacturing and looking at like machine mean time to failure rates and oh, I'd be sticking my head in the oven. That'd be terrible. No. So, that counts too. There are jobs you can be a PM in a lot of different industries, probably all of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
Medical,
yeah.
IT, everybody needs
So figure out what
PMs.
your interest is and kind of pursue that. Because there's a lot of different fields you could go into, and a lot of that's geographically limited as well. But yeah, there's research to be done. It's I think the sum total of all of our pieces of advice here. You got to
Yes,
go do your
research.
homework.
Same thing with, if you want to maintain your clearance, but you're retired in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska where there are
Yeah,
no top secret clear jobs, you're
no
gonna have
skiffs
to,
out in the cornfields.
yeah, you're gonna have to figure it out. And so people get frustrated and they're not willing to relocate or can't for family reasons or health, whatever reasons they have. And
Yep.
that's understandable. But then now's your time to pivot, do something
Yes.
else, and be okay with knowing that you're going to lose that clearance because you have 2 years from the time you last use it to get sponsored by a company, or else it goes inactive. And then good luck after that finding an organization that will sponsor you. They're out
Yeah,
there, but again,
mine's
it goes
gone.
back to research. Do your
Yeah,
research.
absolutely. Well, Marcel, it's been awesome. We've got to bring or land the plane, I suppose is the expression. Can you tell the people where to find you? Obviously, you are just an absolute dynamo on LinkedIn. So you look up Marisol Maloney. She's out there. What else? What else are your touch points? I know the answer, but I'll give you a chance to pitch it yourself.
Basically, LinkedIn. That's really
Okay.
where I like to interact with people. I like to look at people's profiles or when they reach out to me. Because yeah, email, yeah, I do the email back and forth, but I feel like I connect pe with people better via LinkedIn. That's the main one I use. Eventually, I'll probably branch out to like Instagram and Facebook. I'm working on my
You'll have your
website
own
right now.
podcast someday, I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's something I think about sometimes, but
Yeah.
for now, LinkedIn is the main place to find me and connect with me. And it helps if you follow my posts and, get information, ask questions that way, because I don't accept just anybody's connection request because I do look at people's profiles and I see how you interact on LinkedIn. If you're a jerk on LinkedIn, I don't want you part of
Yep.
my network. If you're just a taker, I don't want you in my network because I like working with people that give and take. I'm very protective of my veteran network. And I also have recruiters in my network and hiring managers in my network and other resume writers and career strategists. So I do have a bunch of different tribes that I'm part of. And so I try to stick with similar, people, but I do branch out sometimes and connect with others. It just depends on how they reach out to me and also
Yeah.
what kind of content they're putting out. And they don't have to be like content creators. It's just how do they present
Just don't
themselves
be
on
out there
social
like
media?
trolling and sniping at people, I think is the
Yes.
bottom line
Yes.
here. Don't be a jerk.
Yes. Yes. If I see that you're doing a lot of negative posts, I don't want you in my network. I'll pass. So
Yeah.
yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to find me and interact with me.
Awesome. Well, appreciate having you on. You are our second person in the hiring chain that's been on the podcast. So we're looking to get diverse viewpoints on everything, especially yours being in the veteran space and the cleared space. Very valuable stuff. Thanks very much for coming on, Marisol.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. And for the listeners, Semper Fidelis, we'll talk to you later. Friends, thanks for joining me for a great show. If you'd like to hear more, I'll have the guests' contact info in the show notes below. If you'd like to get involved with Data Career Academy and find out more about what we do, please visit my website, themajordata.com. Or you can join my LinkedIn group for exclusive free content and first looks at what I'm working on. With that, Semper Fidelis, and I'll talk to you later.